Hello, everybody, and welcome to our podcast, Welcome to Livingston, where we invite local businesses, people, and organizations in to talk about what they are giving to our community. My name is Don Putkela.
And I'm Angela Putkela, and we're with the Putkela Group Real Estate Professionals. As realtors and brokerage owners, we bring valuable insight into the local market and community every week.
Thanks for listening, and welcome to Livingston. Welcome to another episode of the Welcome to Livingston podcast. My name is Don Putkela.
And I'm Angela Putkela, and we're with the Putkela Group Real Estate Professionals.
You know, we are really excited about today's show, but before we get started, I just wanted to give a big shout out to our sponsor. So today's episode of the Welcome to Livingston podcast is brought to you by our valued sponsor, Jim Paquette with Lake Michigan Credit Union. He is a trusted mortgage lender who has lived and worked in our community for many years. Jim Paquette is dedicated to helping our neighbors achieve their home ownership dreams and is proud to support the local businesses that make our area special.
Great. So I know normally we have some different small businesses and causes and events throughout the county, and sometimes we end up doing something more real estate-y because we are real estate agents, we're realtors, we're brokerage owners, and this is one of those days.
Yeah, no, I was really excited about sitting down and talking about this because it's something that we've talked about a little bit on episodes before, but we're going to be diving a little bit more into it and kind of focusing on it. And that's open houses.
Yes. Because
it's something that, you know, our sellers and our buyers kind of have a different feeling over. And it's something that, you know, can be exciting, but can sometimes stress out people as well.
Definitely. And it's an interesting element of the real estate process in terms of how it's perceived by the public because of all of these crazy home shows.
100%. People think differently about an open house than what it actually is. Not that we don't have open houses that are, well trafficked and a lot of people and such, but if you watch these home shows, it's like, oh, they did do the big renovation and everything, and then we're going to have the open house at the end, and there's 50, 60 people coming through the open house, and the house is sold by the end of the 2 hours when the open house is over.
Yeah, that's not reality.
Right.
At all. So it's kind of a bit of a reality check. You know, everybody knows open houses, what an open house is. You know, you can go ahead and walk into a home that is for sale, that is because it's being held open.
Well, I would preface that not everyone knows exactly what an open house is.
Okay, fair.
Okay. I think that there's a perception on what an open house is. But you're right. It's you know, the reality is your realtors are holding the house open to the general public.
Right.
That someone can come and visit the home and walk through the house without having an agent.
Right. That's the one time for a seller that the buyers have not already been vetted.
Yes.
That for showings, you know, that buyer's agent has already kind of checked in, make sure that person is qualified. An open house is really anybody.
What buckets would you put in of who's coming to open houses?
So it's really interesting. To me, there's a lot of looky-loos, which nobody really knows, like other than realtors, that a looky-loo is someone that is looking for a house, but they've been looking for probably 20 years.
Well, you know, you're right. There's people out there that this is what they do. They go to open houses.
This is something that's fun. Like
right.
They're always thinking about moving, dreaming about moving, looking at houses, but it never happens. It's never going to happen. And that's just who they are.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There is the proverbial nosy neighbors, right?
Yes.
Because if there's somebody on your street and there's an open house, you know, the neighbors like to go and check out. Sometimes they like to check out for, in that particular model, what has that person done?
Right. They have a similar floor plan.
Yeah.
There's the ones that are like, oh, I've always driven by this house. I've always wanted to see inside it.
Yeah. They're not really looking to buy a house, but they want to see inside the house.
Right. Or they're like, there's that group. They're like, they listed the house for what price? I need to go walk through the house and see if it's really worth that. Or
Yep, exactly. The other thing too is the early stage home buyers, people that are looking to buy a house, but they haven't really begun. And so they're just trying to get ideas. What do they like about a house? What don't they like? They maybe don't want specific showings. just yet because they're not really sure where to begin. So, and then the interesting part for me is sometimes there's people who refuse to have an agent or be represented, and they're just kind of doing it themselves. And so that's really the only way that they're able to get into a house, since they don't have an agent and won't use one. Or also people who do have an agent and use their agent, but their agent happens to be out of town right now. Maybe it's in the winter and their agent goes down to Florida. So they're not around.
And exactly. And all those people are...
Or out of the area, too.
Out of the area.
Yeah.
Yep, the agent is there. They're using a friend, or they're using someone that's too far away. They can't make it to get out there to look at the house. So they're like, oh, just go to the open house.
Yeah.
So they end up at the open house. And there's nothing wrong with any of these groups, okay? So to start off, an open house is an opportunity to get your house out there to more people, to increase the visibility of it, right? So there's nothing bad about any of these groups. Any one of these groups can become a buyer for your home. And it's the job of your agent to talk to these people as they come through the house and help them through the process and answer any questions that they have to highlight your home.
Because even though, based on what we've outlined, those people do not seem very motivated, sometimes they're motivated enough and may be able to tell a friend or a family member. Maybe that nosy neighbor isn't moving down the street, but maybe they want a friend or family to live there.
To come into the house.
So you never know. Anytime you get more eyeballs on your house is a good thing.
Right. So let's back up for a second, okay?
Sure.
So we're going to talk about this from two different aspects, from the seller side and from the buyer side, right?
Right.
Okay, so starting off with the seller side, because an open house doesn't happen unless the seller says, hey, I'm open to having an open house.
Right. Some sellers don't want to do an open
right.
house. So
why may a seller not want to do an open house? Because that's a great point that you just brought up.
Sometimes they're self-conscious, and it's a matter of having nosy neighbors. They don't want their neighbors to come and take a look. Other times they're concerned about people that haven't been vetted and so forth.
Right.
So there's definitely some reservations. Each seller is different. And some sellers are the opposite of that, and they think the only way to sell the house is an open house. So they want an open house every weekend.
Right, exactly.
And so it's in terms of managing expectations and the reality. What would you have to say about
I would
sellers
say
think?
that that's 100% accurate. Every seller thinks about it differently. Some don't want to go through the work that it takes to get a house ready for an open house because they think about it differently than a showing. And I would say, hey, it's just as much work for an open house as it is for a showing. Just have your house clean. The nice thing about an open house is your agents, me and you, we are going to be there, right? Mm-hmm. So we're there making sure that we're watching the people that are going through the house, that everything's taken care of, that it's locked up when it's over, that, people aren't doing things that they shouldn't be doing in the house while they're there, right?
Right.
I've done open houses where I've helped out another agent before where it was a very expensive house. And the people said, okay, I'll have an open house, but I need an agent on every floor.
Right.
Right. There
sense.
always has to be someone in the basement, always has to be someone upstairs because they're just anxious about unvetted people going through the house.
That's true.
I like an open house. I think an open house is any opportunity you have to increase the visibility of your home.
Yes.
Is a great thing. So an open house is a great marketing aspect, not even necessarily to bring in a potential buyer, though bringing in a potential buyer is great, but a different way to have more people realize that your home is out there and for sale and to be able to articulate its attributes.
Right. The interesting part for me is when we're able to use it to leverage to get that offer or to get a better offer, because it can make buyers nervous. So for that seller, maybe that seller that doesn't want to have an open house, well, if there's someone who has seen the house and they like it and they're on the fence and they just, aren't sure if they want to offer, it'll make that particular person nervous if there's an open house because how these TV shows have programmed us. Yeah. So at that point in time, it may convince that person to get off the fence.
That is interesting because we have the HGTV
phenomenon,
right? Where they think that the house is sold through the open house. But we also have a long-term history of open houses that before everything was online and you could, we shoot videos of our homes so you can get a video walkthrough, right? You can see beautiful pictures online of the houses and such. But, pre-2000, pre-1995, 96, an open house was a huge way that you saw the home, right? And, 30 years ago, more homes were sold through open houses. Now the number of homes that are sold through open houses are in the single digit percentage-wise. However, that's not to say, as you said, that an open house doesn't have a huge impact on the demand for your home.
Right.
Because it can.
Exactly. Makes a difference. Makes some of those people nervous, that it becomes a poker match in a way because, if someone thinks they have all day, as long as they want to decide whether they want the house or not. If it's, introduce the idea that perhaps somebody else may purchase the house before you. This is the only one of this house there is. It changes the way that buyer thinks about things.
100%. So, a good open house, for the sellers out there, your agent is going to sit down with you, talk to you about the open house, talk about dates for you to do it, usually a Saturday or a Sunday. We are seeing more people do open houses maybe on a Wednesday or Thursday night sometimes, every once in a while nowadays. But usually you're going to have it on a weekend, right? It's usually going to be for 2 or 3 hours of an open house in the afternoon. And then your agents are going to advertise that. They're going to throw it out on social media. Maybe they're going to call people in the neighborhood. Maybe they're going to send a postcard to try to get people to come into the house and such. So it's a positive thing. It's showcasing your home. Think of it almost like, one of those garden walkthrough type things where, you're getting people to go out there and everything. So it's a good option.
And the time of year is really going to have a big impact as to how many people come, right?
Yes.
So in the winter with the snow, you're not going to get nearly as many people as in the spring, right? But a lot of those people in the spring, they're some of these looky-loos throughout, but some of the early lookers, right? So those people might not have their stuff together. Whereas if somebody is coming out and trudging through the snow to come to this open house, they're going to be more motivated than other people. So.
Right. And if you're having one during the winter, make sure you shovel that walk, shovel that driveway, get some salt down. Last thing you want is someone tripping on your front steps,
Yeah.
So you're taking those precautions to make sure that you're prepping your home just as if you would be prepping your home for a showing.
Right.
Right? If you have your house listed during the winter, you want to make sure that you're shoveling the walkway and you're shoveling the driveway and you're getting some salt down on your front porch as well.
And if you're, selling your parents' house and they're not around, or if you're on vacation and it snows, it's helpful to have a really good agent that will come over there and make sure that the house is prepared and ready as well.
No, there's been a number of times that we have gone and shoveled a walkway or taken care of that.
Absolutely.
Or made sure to come over there and turn on all the lights, and then at the end of the day, turn all the lights off. So, whether it be for a showing or for an open house, a good agent will help prep you for that.
Yeah.
One of the other things in an open house is your agent is going to have a discussion with you, the seller, about what you're comfortable with and what you want to happen or not happen at an open house. So one of those things that may be, hey, please make sure everyone takes off their shoes.
Right.
The reality is most people take off their shoes. However, there's some people when they don't see carpet in the house and it's all hardwood flooring or it's all LVP, they may leave their shoes on. But during the winter, just about everyone takes off their shoes because you're coming in from the wet, right?
Well, no, we've heard from some of our sellers that people will trudge through the house in wet shoes, which is terrible. But at least for an open house, generally speaking, the agent that's there is going to ask people to take off their shoes. And if people are not used to touring homes, that may be a new concept for them.
Right, because you're meeting them at the front door.
Yes.
Talking to them and such. So let's flip over a second when we talk meeting them at the front door and such. What does an open house look like for a buyer?
They walk in. The interesting part is that culturally, people are used to shopping in stores. And they'll go in and they'll look at things. What a buyer, traditionally I've encountered, they don't think so hard at the fact that this is somebody's house, right?
Right.
And so it just, maybe some of the comments they make, or even in terms of getting back to showings taking longer than they should.
Right.
Even if it's a matter of, well, the open house ends at this time. Well, we have had buyers show up 2 minutes before and then take 45 minutes. Well, those people want to get back to their house.
Well, one of the things that it sparked when you were talking about is, I think, is interesting, is how you said people are used to like shopping at stores, right?
Right.
So we're there as the agent, right? And I cannot name the number of times that, like, I'll introduce myself to the person. I'll be like, hey, do you have any questions? I want to talk to you about the house. And they're like, oh, I'm just looking. It's like, this isn't like you're coming in to get a appliance. This is somebody's home. Yes, I know you're looking, right? You came to an open house.
We'll be walking with you.
Right.
Because we don't know you from Adam, and we're here to represent and protect our seller in that case. Right?
Exactly. But, for a buyer, open houses can be a great thing, right? But I tell my buyers all the time, instead of going to the open house, contact me, your agent, so I can get you a private showing, so you can feel more comfortable walking through, because now this is your independent private time that you don't have other people walking through the front door. You're not looking at the kitchen and then another family comes in that's part of the open house and our person comes in to start asking questions and such. You want to have your personal time.
Well, and even beside that, the thing that what some of our buyers forget is that when they go to the open house, it's somebody representing the seller that's over there. They're not going to do like we are, where we point out the flaws in the house. They're over there pointing out all the great things. Right. And we did have somebody once that we showed houses to regularly, and just on a whim, they popped into an open house. We still show them houses all the time, but it was a matter of this house. They just fell in love with it. So sight unseen, we'd help them put the offer in, and it's okay, I guess this is the house. So your first time seeing that house was on the inspection, right?
Right. And that is a shock sometimes, because there's things that I would pick up that they didn't pick up. And I believe you're talking about the instance where it was a wood foundation, right? Yes. So a wood foundation would have impacted, they love the house, they're in the house, it's amazing and everything, and it worked for them and such. But when you're going through a showing with your agent's job is to point out the things that you may miss that you don't see, because
that you're going to want to know before you ever put an offer in. Yeah.
I'm looking at the house with a very different eye than my buyers are.
Yes.
Right? I'm looking at the house from walk through thousands of houses at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Gone through hundreds of inspections. So I'm seeing different things, and I'm able to point out different things that not only may impact the viability of the house that you want to put an offer on, or maybe increase the viability, right? But also affect what type of offer you put in. These things are important. But that being said, we've had buyers go to open houses that they're like, hey, I really like this, Then I set up a showing. I say, hey, before we put in an offer, we're going to set up a showing so we can walk through a second time so we can talk about different things.
Right.
Because you're distracted during an open house.
Yeah. As a buyer.
Right? Mm-hmm. Or there's the open houses where, hey, my parents went through the open house. They really think I need to see this home. And then we go see the home and it's like,
no,
that's not going to work.
Yep, that happens. It is interesting because different buyers of different stages come through open houses.
Right.
And in terms of what they are, some of them are just looking for themselves. In some cases, a buyer has put an offer in, right? And then there's this open house. So they're over there sweating bullets because, again, they're convinced that somebody else is going to purchase the house. Right. So then, and we always tell our buyers, okay, we've submitted the offer. We know there's an open house. Please don't go to the open house. But they still do.
They still do.
They still do. And then the interesting part is
they're the double agent, secret.
and they're like, well, but we didn't tell the agent, who we were. I said, well, but agents are pretty savvy and they know. So like, okay, did you ask them how many offers they got? Yeah.
Right.
And so it's like,
did you write down your name? Because your name's on the contract that we sent over as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So basically it just shoots holes in your own boat, because in terms of where that leverage is, where those negotiations are, maybe you're trying to put a lowball offer in and you
Right.
know, go under asking or something. And then here they see how eager you are firsthand to be like, oh, don't worry. They will come back and counter you at full price because you've
Right.
already tipped your hand.
Yep. So very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So
But
that's
you know,
something to be watching
you
out
know,
for.
open houses do serve a purpose. There's a lot of fun things that you can get at an open house and such. You know, if there's a lot of people coming through the open house, all of a sudden you can see what does this house look like with a lot of people in it? How would it look like during a party? That sort of thing. You know, those things are interesting and such. But, you know,
For an agent, sometimes on showings you don't get feedback right away, whereas at an open house, at least
It's
at the
real-time
point-
field.
real-time feedback.
yes, you can get a better idea of what a random person thinks of the home, right?
Right.
So they're seeing things different than you see it because as the seller, this is your house you live in every day. You don't see it the way other people see it.
Yeah.
Okay. And very rarely you don't smell it the way other people smell it.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's my PSA of the day. If you go on a vacation and you come back home and your house smells, I'm sorry, your house smells all the time. You're
Great point.
you're nose blind to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's not to say it's a bad smell, but that's the
Sometimes
smell that it
people
has.
use a lot of air fresheners
Yes.
because they really like air fresheners. But to a buyer, what that means is that there's something wrong. Maybe there's a pet smell in the house.
They're masking the smell.
Yes, yes.
But the thing is, you become nose blind to that as well.
Sure.
So one Glade air freshener turns into 5 3 years later.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you're like, man, that must not be working anymore. I don't smell them anymore.
Yeah.
Well, you got used to it. Now to someone else, it's an overpowering smell, right? So sometimes you get perspective with open houses,
Yeah.
right? So that's a good thing. You know, I wanted to take a quick pause on open houses to explain what a broker open is for a second.
Excellent. Yes.
Because some people have never heard of a broker open, but when we sit down and we talk to our clients and we talk to them about open houses, sometimes we talk about a broker open. What is a broker open?
A broker open is like an open house, but for agents.
Yes. So a broker open is this chance for your agents to hold your house open and invite other agents to come walk through the house, for them to be able to walk through the house and see it and be like, hey, I have a client that might like this house, right? So you're kind of spreading it out a little bit.
So especially if it's an unusual property, it's a great chance to, cover more ground, because for each of those agents, they have several clients to potential clients that maybe they can call up to say, hey, we haven't seen any houses for 6 months, but I just saw this house that would be perfect for you.
Right.
It kind of has that whole sales force that goes out for it.
100%. And, you know, from the agent aspect, I like broker opens because it gives me different perspectives from other professionals that maybe saw something that I didn't see. Because I go to other people's broker opens all the time and they're always asking me for feedback of like, hey, what did you think of this? Is there anything that, you know, I'm missing here? Or you know, this is an amazing feature. How would you market this feature? So, you know, we all try to help each other.
Right. And so then you have feedback from several professionals.
Exactly. One of the main things is you're spreading that net wider, because then instead of an individual, you know, you could have an agent that comes in and they have, you know, 15, 20 different clients. They're like, hey, I have a person that this would be perfect for that has been looking for a long time, but they're not actively looking. You're picking up the people that aren't actively looking.
Right. This is true. In general, you would only ever do one. You know, it's not like an open house where you might have several if it's still on the market or so forth.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
so that is something. Another thing too is in terms of how agents view open houses. On some level, just in public service announcement, the person that is greeting you at that open house very well may not be the listing agent.
Yes.
Because that is a place where a lot of junior agents will cut their teeth and get started by working open houses.
It's their opportunity to maybe
these
meet some
established listing
buyers.
agents, yeah. And those established listing agents have worked hard to have their weekends off.
Right.
But some are still out there hustling and doing it too. So it's a whole variety. But
Right. And if you're a seller and you're talking to your agent about holding an open house, it is okay to ask them who's going to be doing the open house And if you only want your agent to be doing the open house, it's okay to say, listen, I'll do an open house, but you have to be the one doing it.
Right.
Right? That's not to say that there's not some amazing agents out there that what they do is they hold open houses for other people. When we first started out, we would hold open houses for other agents, and it's a great opportunity for people.
Well, it's a business model, particularly for someone that just doesn't have those past clients yet. Maybe they still do a good job, but they don't have that book to lean on.
Right, exactly. So remember, when you're a buyer walking through a house and you're talking to that agent, again, they may or may not be the person that's listing the house. And remember, regardless of which, they're representing the seller at that point, and they're going to be truthful with you about the questions you ask, but they're not going to volunteer things the way that your buyer's agent would.
Right. And they may be asking you a lot of questions about what you're looking for because they may be jonesing to try to become your buyer's agent, right?
100%.
This is, to them, this is like a job interview, right?
Right.
And so a lot of agents, even people that are established agents that maybe don't have a lot of repeat business, but they're really great for just right out front. And so maybe that's how they get their business.
100%. But, that being said, when we're doing an open house, if I get someone coming in and I'm talking to them about the house and there's certain aspects of the house that they don't like, I'm asking them questions of like, well, what are you looking for in a house and such? Because maybe I have another listing that would be perfect for them, right?
Yeah.
Or I know of a house of like, hey, you don't like this, but I was just in a house last week that has exactly what you're saying. Right. Because you have those people that if all they're doing is going to open houses, they're seeing a very, very, very small sliver of the market.
Right. And we're professionals. So we're able to help people however we can.
100%.
With an open house, you just don't get the same experience as a private showing.
You do not. It's not the same.
So as a buyer.
As a buyer, you should always get a private showing. Even if you've gone to the open house and you love the open house, you're like, hey, I want to put in an offer. If it's viable, get a showing afterwards so you can walk through the house with a different eye and you can take the time that you want to take and you're looking at different things, right?
Right.
So that's an important thing. If you're out on a Saturday or Sunday, you'll notice, especially in the spring and the summer, there'll be signs for open houses. Those are opportunities. A good agent's going to have some good signage out to lead people in the right direction to come see it and such. Pay attention when you're coming to an open house, what side of the road you're parking on and such, making sure you're not going to get a ticket. There's a lot of these subdivisions now that like you can only park on the left side of the street or only park on the right side of the street, right?
Right.
There's some downtowns where you can't park in the road. Open houses are great opportunities to be able to walk around and kind of check things out and such, but they're not right for everybody. Some buyers hate open houses.
Right.
Some sellers don't want you to have an open house. But for some people, they're like, hey, I like this. And we're here for whatever floats your boat, whatever direction you're going in, we can accommodate that.
And that's why it's so helpful for everybody to have their feet based in reality for what open houses are.
Yes.
And I feel like
and what they're not.
Yeah, very true. and we've covered a lot today. So hopefully this was helpful for the listeners. Hopefully it offered perspective and things that you hadn't even really thought of.
100%.
I still love the poker match.
Yes.
I love having it to make the buyers nervous and make people make either the offer in a timely fashion or B, a better offer because of it.
Right. Remember, there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? And an open house increases your visibility.
Yes.
And when all things said and done, even if you had an open house and only one or two people went through, you don't know of all the other stuff that went on where people were seeing it online, where people are looking at the pictures and such. It is a great tool on both sides of the equation if it's used correctly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So thank you guys so much for listening today. We pause to talk about real estate. Sometimes we are realtors. We do own our own brokerage. Please check out all of our episodes about all the great businesses we've interviewed, but check out those real estate episodes that we give you a lot of valuable insight into the different facets of the transaction that we can help you out with, tell some great stories and such, but just give you some good advice at the same time.
Yeah. And just as a note, generally speaking, we do our own open houses. So for anyone that hires us to sell their home, we're who you're getting. So that's a win.
100%.
And then even in terms of a note, our business comes probably whether 84, 85, 86%, depends on the year, from past clients and referrals and recommendations from those that work with us and know us and trust us.
100%. Yeah. So check us out at welcometolivingston.com. You can Google the Putkela group, see our reviews online. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website. Check us out on our socials. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're here on the Welcome to Livingston podcast.
Yeah. Talking about all kinds of different topics each and every week.
Wonderful. So thank you guys so much for listening today. And
welcome to Livingston.